sure God power. Get everything you ever wanted and live the life of your dreams. The Master's Course. Copyright 2010 by Richard Lee McKim, Jr. All rights reserved. Let the quest for knowing begin.
This story is continued from the prior segment. For best results, watch the prior segment, number 37, first.
In a place where time may have no meaning, there was then an instant when I knew everything, when everything made sense. It was like this place was where I could find the answers to all my questions about life, about the planets, about God, about everything. Suddenly, I intuitively understood math and science, and I don't know about math. I haven't asked about calculus. Now I understand it. Languages became unimportant. I knew them. Even without asking questions, answers were imparted about things I've always wondered about. I had always been troubled about the Trinity. Now I was aware that the Father was what you might call the being source aspect of God. The Son was the doing aspect, and the Holy Spirit was the imparter, the bringer of knowledge. I was aware that these three aspects of God, while separate, were also one, in the same way that a husband and wife are separate, yet one. As Debbie and Diane were approaching, now almost close enough to touch, I sensed a boundary across which I could not go. Then Christ appeared. His light filled my vision. Holding out a raised hand towards me, he said very definitely, "No," blocking me and them from coming closer to each other. It would be like someone preventing you from going over a cliff or passing a certain point beyond which you wouldn't be able to return. His face was strong and kind. He wore a beard, and his hair was long. His gown, open at the chest, had a sash around the waist. I'm describing a form, but the incredible light he gave off outweighed it. Part of me could hardly stand to be around it, but yet I could stand it. It was like the light came out of his body directly, and he was made out of it. I was too, but my light was not nearly as intense as his. Debbie and Diane also gave off light, but with Christ, it was all around him, especially around his head, where the light was circular, and where he had arms or spokes of light extending like those you might see from a star. Around the rest of his body, the light was more uniform. His eyes were piercing, yet tender. You almost wanted to look away, but then you couldn't. He could see everything about me, clear beyond everything, even more than I could see or know. It was kind of scary, but so totally known, exposed, and yet accepted and loved. Yet I wanted nothing more than to be a part of it. It's kind of like songs about people being in love, where part of them wants to run away and part of them doesn't. "Well, hello," he said, and embraced me. I didn't ever want to be away from him. Ever. I just wanted him to envelop me somehow, and not to be separated from him. I was so excited about the knowledge I just found that I felt like I was bubbling and tripping over myself, trying to communicate it to him with a kind of thought transference. And he said, "Isn't it wonderful? Everything is beautiful here, and it fits together, and you'll find that. But you can't stay here now. It's not your time. You have to go back." Then he said, "Watch this." And then I saw my whole life, from birth to the current moment. I knew he was with me, but my awareness of everything else around me disappeared. In this process, I actually observed myself, as well as being aware of the thoughts and feelings of myself and others involved in every incident of my life. Christ left it to me to assess things, to arrive at conclusions myself. I became aware that I was being harder on myself than he was. In one incident, when I was 9 or 10, Sharon, my roommate at the school for the blind, showed me a new dress her mother had just made for her. When she left the room, I ripped all the buttons and the lace off. I was angry because I wanted to be cared about the way her mother cared about her. Now, when we observed myself doing this in the life review, Christ said to me, "Yeah, that wasn't too cool, but you made it right though." And Christ laughed as we now observed myself apologizing and hugging Sharon later. During this entire encounter with Christ, I believe he employed my vernacular as a way of relating to me. His laughter was hearty and supportive. Thinking about his reaction to that incident has helped me be less somber and uptight about things my children have done wrong. Then he asked me, "What have you learned from your life?" I answered that I thought it was important to be honest. Then Christ said to me, "You have to learn and teach more people about loving and forgiving. Whether people deserve it or not is not the point. You shouldn't try to select those who you think should be forgiven and those who shouldn't." He was referring to a tendency on my part to forgive only those who had apologized to me. He also told me before I left that it was going to be hard, but to remember what I had learned. Then there was absolutely nothing. For how long, I have no idea. All of a sudden, I felt a heavy and full pain. I eventually awoke in the hospital to find I had a skull fracture, a concussion, a neck injury, a back injury, and a leg injury. The things I have been through since my near-death experience have been unbelievably hard, but I have learned a lot from them. I am learning about separating the sin from the sinner. I am learning about judging less and letting go of some of my past sense of smugness and superiority. Finally, I'm learning to care for myself enough that I no longer allow the negative thoughts of others to drag me down. As Christ said, "The path has been hard, but in walking it, I feel I have grown." That is the end of her story. In most cases, after moving out of their body and seeing themselves from outside of their own bodies, they report moving into a bright light, and that as they enter the light, they feel profound love and total acceptance. This is the beginning of their emergence from the state of immersion. As you begin to become more and more aware of the whole picture, you experience what some call total knowing, universal knowledge, and awareness of everything. This is the experience of going into the light or going through the tunnel. It is simply the visual experience of their own consciousness expanding and regaining the all-knowing state as they become unimmersed. Some people are able to retain some of that greater knowing even after they have returned to the physical experience in the body. Others, once again, lose all of that greater knowing as they become re-immersed back into their physical experience. Many people who have had these near-death experiences have experienced expanded abilities, special insights, been able to see even though they have never seen before, and many other extraordinary talents. However, they believed that it was only conditional, meaning that it was only possible during the near-death experience. Nothing could be further from the truth. Every ability that has been described and experienced by the near-death experience has been experienced and reported by people who regularly have out-of-body experiences during sleep or meditation, during altered states of consciousness, or due to other means as well. These experiences of the NDEers are not unique. The huge advantage that the NDEer has over the ordinary person is that they know that it is real. It is so much easier for them to alter their own reality than for you and me, because they have already experienced it. However, they don't realize this, and they think that it is a one-time event and not repeatable. So it is their own beliefs that prevent them from exploring and developing this ability.
To continue, go to How to Use Your God Power, chapter number 10, segment number 39. Let your quest for knowing continue.